Yo, so from here on out, spoilers. I can't go in too deep into this without heading into spoiler territory, so I'm just going to say here spoilers from now if you haven't seen Spider Man Far From Home. So, Spider Man Far From Home, the 23rd film in the MCU, and technically the final film of Phase 3, which still feels a bit odd to me. I mean, I technically count the Avengers Endgame as the end of Phase 3, and Spider-Man Far From Home start of Phase 4, but anyway, that's pedantic. Does this mean that... Yeah, does this mean that the next film in the kind of trilogy is going to be Spider-Man Home Alone or Spider-Man Homeward Bound? But anyway, Peter Parker, played by Tom Holland, he's got a lot on his plate. He's just been through hell, has seen half the universe dusted and everything go put back together, and seen the death of his latest father figure, Tony Stark. So he just wants a little bit of normal. He wants to go on his science classes field trip across Europe and tell his love interest MJ, played by Zendaya, how he truly feels. When he is suddenly contacted by, well, first of all by Happy Hogan, played once again by Jon Favreau, and then later by Nick Fury and Maria Hill, played once again by Samuel L. Jackson and Kobe Smulders. There he is introduced to Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio, played by Jake Gyllenhaal. And they've got a bit of a problem. Because a series of creatures known as the Elementals, who seemingly caused the death of Beck's family back on his world, are they're kind of they're causing havoc on the Earth, and they have to find some way to stop them. But once again, Peter has to juggle living up to his idol's boots. He has to find a way in order to do everything and still have a normal social life, which isn't going to be easy. Now, as I said, spoilers ahead, but I'm just going to get the main one out of the way. The Elementals, while they play a big part in the trailer, they're a bit of a red herring. Because anyone who's read the comics or knows the basic thing knows that Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio is a master of illusion, and he ultimately turns out to be a bad guy. But one thing I will stop and say right here is that this, to me, felt like a very good character. Because Mysterio was intended to be used once before, back in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. They were actually... I don't know if they were planning to make him a main villain, but they were planning to complete a character arc that Bruce Campbell had across the first 3 films and work Mysterio in there, make Bruce Campbell Mysterio. But the way they do Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio here is actually very good, because during the first half of the movie, I knew that he was going to turn out to be the villain, but still, he did draw me in. He was a very likeable character. He was just having a moment to say to Peter, "What do you truly want?" And then when he does when we do see him as most evil moments, when he's tricked Peter, it's very well done. So yeah, I was hesitant about it, but you know what? Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio, it works. And one other thing I will say about Mysterio, with the previous film Spider-Man: Homecoming, when I came out of it, I thought to myself, yeah, that was good, but it felt mostly like a Marvel movie that just was Spider-Man, which nothing wrong with that, but I didn't know if it was as good as the earlier films, with Webb or Raimi or the like. I mean, I'm one of the few people in the world who doesn't actually think Amazing Spider-Man 2 is that bad. Apparently, I'm in a minority, but I admit I wasn't sure about Spider-Man: Homecoming coming out of it. I mean, I warmed to it. I thought it was a good movie. Just I didn't know if it was the best Spider-Man movie. But when Mysterio starts doing what he's doing, and some of the mind tricks he plays, they seem directly out of a comic book, especially out of a Spider-Man one. And just watching him do what he did, watching Peter try and fight back against Mysterio and his mysterious powers, I was on the edge of my seat. I was suddenly thinking, "All right, Marvel, you can do Spider-Man. I'll back off." This is brilliant. I mean, I do feel that maybe the elementals. I mean, the elementals, they are a kind of group in the comics, and they're kind of much different to the way they're being kind of portrayed in this movie. In this movie, they're kind of based off kind of famous Spider-Man villains, and while they're never said that they are the kind of villains that they're based on, it it's kind of a little hard not to draw comparisons. For example, the only one that's really kind of referenced in the movie is the water elemental, which is evidently based around the Spider-Man villain Hydra Man. Now, while Hydra Man, I don't know if he would ever be kind of big enough to warrant a movie kind of based around him. They do kind of reference him kind of when they watch the kind of footage back. It is kind of meant to be him. The others, you got the water elemental, which is supposedly based on Hydra Man. The fire elemental, which is more based on Molten Man. The earth elemental, which it's hard not to draw a comparison to Sandman. And finally, the air elemental, who is kind of supposed to be based on Cyclone. I mean, they never truly can reveal that these are the characters. I mean, maybe if they did want to kind of bring someone like Sandman in for the next film, it's yeah. I mean, they never explicitly stated, but it's evident they are based on those characters. But Peter's classmates are once again pretty good, done pretty well. I mean, his kind of relationship that develops over the film with Zendaya, kind of him wanting to tell her how he feels and everything, even her revealing that she kind of has feelings for him, and their eventual kiss, kind of towards the end of the film, is actually done very well. I mean, once again, Flash Thompson, played by Tony Revolori, he's kind of a likable douchebag. He's turned down a little bit here, but I actually feel he's not the kind of most kind of douchebaggiest in this entire film. That actually feel like goes to Brad Davis, played by Remy Hi. I don't know how to pronounce his surname. Sorry about that, but I mean, Brad in the comics does date Mary Jane Watson at one point, so it's kind of not. It makes sense to have him here and be Peter's kind of romantic rival. But honestly, I just feel he's like a douchebag here. I mean, he catches Peter in a rather compromising situation and then goes, I'm going to have to tell MJ. I mean, I know you love her, I know you care for feelings for her, but so do I. But I do kind of love when MJ gives him his just desires. He's trying to get everyone to see, like, why is no one seeing this? I mean, Peter just disappears. I mean, he was seen with a woman in a stop in Prague, half naked, and yet you're all okay with this. It's like, what were you doing viewing him half naked at a rest stop in Prague? It's like, I mean, just that's hilarious, but you know what? That works. I mean, as we mentioned, we have got kind of other cast members returning from the other films, such as Angourie Rice, Jacob Batalon, and Marissa Tomei, and also Jon Favreau. I mean, Betty Brant, I admit, she kind of worked well in this film. I mean, it's kind of hinted throughout the films that Ned Leeds and Betty Brant have kind of started a relationship together, and it's doing well. That's probably one of my only kind of small gripes about the film. It's like, they're shown to be having quite a nice relationship, and I enjoy them together. But then, kind of towards the end of the film, when everyone kind of gets back home safely, and Peter asks if he and MJ can do a double date with Betty and Ned, and they just turned to each other like, "We broke up." I was like, "What?" I mean, okay, it's a summer romance still, but I just kind of felt they could have shown that to work. Why? I don't know. Maybe that's just a small gripe. But I also like kind of Peter and Happy's kind of relationship in this movie once again. I mean, I, in the first film, or in Spider-Man Homecoming, it was kind of very much Peter was this kid who Happy was kind of begrudge having to look after. Just someone like, oh, I don't really want to do this. Just stay out of trouble. Whereas this time he legitimately respects him. I mean, when Peter has to call him up in the Netherlands, Happy is on his way. He's not like, oh God, what trouble did you get into this time? He's legitimately fond of him. You know what? I love that. That feels like a step up from the last movie. But the last thing I have to talk about, it comes in a mid-credit scene. Once again, spoilers if you haven't seen it, but they got back one of the best actors from the original Sam Raimi trilogy, and that's J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson. honestly, just when I saw that finally on film, I was like, oh, okay, you win. I mean, not to say there wasn't some good acting in the original Sam Raimi trilogy, but just J.K. Simmons was one of the most perfect castings for the part of J. Jonah Jameson. And while I know he also, in the interim between this film and the end, he did go on to DC with Commissioner Gordon in the DCEU. Just to see him back portraying that role, I'm just thinking, all right, Marvel, you did it right. So yeah, Spider-Man: Far From Home. I admit I wasn't entirely convinced walking out of Spider-Man: Homecoming, but walking out of Spider-Man: Far From Home, I just thought to myself, Marvel, I'm sorry I ever doubted you. You can do Spider-Man and you can do him well, brilliantly. So yeah, if you do get a chance to see this film, definitely check it out. It's to me absolutely brilliant. Anyway, that's my short review of Spider-Man: Far From Home. Will it be Spider-Man: Home Alone next, or Spider-Man: Homeward Bound, or something in between? We'll have to wait and see. Until then, see ya.